everyone. Have you been looking for love in all the wrong places, or the emotionally stable people not beating down your door? What are you looking for? Are you done with all the dating books because it's just way too much for you? Well, tonight's expert is going to teach us how to find real love, and it's going to be awesome. We're very excited. So I was thinking about this a lot this week because I have a friend that's going through a divorce, and he's really struggling because he feels that he's failed because the marriage didn't work. And we're talking about how he had two wonderful children and all the good that came out of the marriage. And it got me thinking about my life and my relationships. And I had a relationship that was on and off for a very long time, and it didn't work out. And it had been my hope that it would end in marriage, but it didn't. But after some time and reflection, I learned a lot about myself. I learned what was important to me, what I wanted, and what I needed, and ultimately that wasn't the right person for me. But I'm happy to say we're still friends, and I think that that's really important. So although it might seem like a failure to a lot of people, to me it ended up being a success. And I remain the hopeless romantic, that there's someone really great out there for me and that I can make it happen. So we're here tonight to tell you to don't lose hope. Jessica's going to bring us a lot of good information, so let me tell you about her tonight. After years of enjoying a successful life coaching practice, Jessica Sabatini turned her attention to her true passion, helping people find real love. She's always been the one her girlfriends called for advice about love and relationships, not only because she seems to have an uncanny sense of understanding men and what they sense and believe, but also because Jessica will tell you the truth in a kind, supportive way, with a lot of humor thrown in. Through studying relationships and human behavior for more than 20 years, Jessica discovered there are reliable steps to creating real love in anyone's life. Jessica Sabatini is a for-real, down-to-earth, funny, fun, and wise go-to woman for doable, tried-and-true relationship advice. And I'd like to announce that Jessica is also married, unlike most of the matchmakers on TV. So let's welcome Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're very excited to be here. We could do a week's worth of show on my love life alone, but you know what? We won't get into that too much tonight. So why don't you start off and tell us, how did you kind of get involved with this? I know we briefly talked about this, kind of your relationship with your husband got you started. So talk to us about that.
Well, many years ago, I had a pretty dark period in my life, and I just had my heart broken into about a million pieces. I'm sure some people can relate. And I got really sick, and I had been kind of dedicated my whole life to this guy named John, and I didn't have any friends. And so I was brokenhearted, and I was really sick, and I was all alone in New York City. And I just said, enough is enough. I need to find a partner. I need someone to be there when I need them. And so I started this, I guess, about 10-month journey to find real love. So I interviewed all these people who were married and like, how did you know it was going to last? How did you know you could commit to this person? And did all this research and read all these books, and kind of came up with this formula that as soon as the pieces fell into place, like 2 weeks later, I started dating my now husband. And I was a life coach for many years, and after a while I just said, you know what, this is what I want to do. I really want to help people find love because they're looking in the wrong places, they're doing the wrong things, and they deserve to feel love. So that's how I got started.
Well, Jessica, you talk a lot about authentic love. So I think that that's sometimes a word that can be overused or that people don't understand. So what do you mean when you say that?
Well, I just find it really interesting that most of us in many areas of our life behave a certain way. And then when it comes to romantic love, this whole other behavior comes out. And we start playing games and strategizing and overanalyzing every little thing. And I find that people are having a lot of the relationship actually inside their head and not with the other person, and not actually exploring and paying attention to the connection that is happening when they are relating in their relationship. And so I teach people to kind of get out of their head and actually be present to what's going on in front of them and seeing, is this a connection that feels good? Is this a connection that is long-term, or is it not? And really getting that clarity. So the more authentic you are, the clearer you are, the more present you are in the relationship, the easier it is to kind of decipher whether or not this is the right relationship for you to commit yourself to.
I love that, because I would say I can be an extremely analytical person, and
Yeah.
my mind can take it 6 ways to Sunday. But what I've learned to do is push that aside, and I'm like, how do I feel when I'm with the person? Am I laughing? Am I enjoying myself? Do I look forward to seeing him again? And that's kind of sitting back, and how do I intuitively feel? And so for me, when I do that, it goes well. But when I get lost in my head, then, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? And so that's one thing that I've learned to say, okay, take a step back from that. So obviously I'm not alone, which is good news. So what advice would you have to people that are struggling with that kind of are more on the analytical side?
Well, and it's almost unavoidable, so don't beat yourself up because you do it. We all get in our head sometime about relationships, even many years into a relationship. But it's how you get yourself out, how you kind of put yourself into the present moment. I often tell people, don't analyze, make observations. And this is great when you're first dating someone or you've been with them for a long time. But instead, when you find yourself caught in that, I'm analyzing every little thing that's going on, instead just stop and make an observation. I'm feeling anxiety right now, or I really like the way you did that, or I'm feeling special. Whatever it is, make an observation of what's really going on. Wow, you were really rude to that waitress. And I think once you start really making observations of what's going on now, it kind of pulls you out of your head and makes you pay attention to the here and now.
Well, Jessica, we've already got some questions for you on chat, and I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Jessica, if you're in the Triangle, you can call us at 919-518-9773 or Skype, computer to 2K voice. Warrior Spirit wants to know, what constitutes a romantic relationship? So I'm not sure if you need a little more on that. You have an answer for that?
Well, I think what they're alluding to, and feel free to write in more if I'm on the wrong track, but, there's all this... semi-relationships going on these days, where you're kind of seeing someone, you don't tell anyone, you're sleeping together, but you're not seeing each other. There's a lot of weird stuff that tends to go on. I find anything that involves your heart or your personal organs is a romantic relationship. Even though it may not be labeled a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship or something like that, if your heart is getting involved, then it's romantic. And you need to kind of be aware of, I guess, the traps that relationship.
Well, this is an interesting from Red High Heels. I find all the wrong men who just want sex. What can I do? I like sex, but feel bad afterwards.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a tough one. Looking for looking for men in all the wrong places. I think.
But hey, I want to just clarify something, because we had a conversation. You work with men too. Because I know we've got some male listeners on, so that's correct, right?
I do work with men. At findingmyreallove.com, our main focus is helping powerful women claim the romantic love they deserve. So all the weekly video blog and the products are geared towards single women who are looking for a man. However, I'm frequently approached by men who ask me to work with them, and I love men, so I can't say no. So I do work with men privately in one-on-one coaching, which is all on the phone. So I work with men in New York and in other cities and stuff like that. So, but men looking for sex, well, it depends on where you're looking and what you're looking for. So maybe you're looking for something a little more of a thrill. So that you're attracting these kind of men who want that kind of thing. I really think that men get a bad rap about this, and there are so many guys out there who aren't looking for that, who aren't maybe being noticed, who are trying to be more respectful, and they're not as flashy, and they're kind of getting looked over because we want to look at our bright and shiny object. And and the other thing is, when men are in their late 40s or 50s and they get a divorce, and everyone just assumes they're going to start dating these 20-year-old women, and all they want is someone young and hot and sexy with big boobs. And the reality is not that. Most men, or a high percentage of them, after they go through something, they want someone they can really relate to and connect to. And so I think they're getting a bad rap, and maybe you need to pay attention to some of the ones who aren't so bright and shiny and in your face, and maybe you'll be able to find a truer connection.
Excellent. Well, Secretary Nodess says very good points. Totally agree. So let's talk a second. I had a couple of things happen recently, and I'd love your point of view. So my friend Stinky met someone, Stinky's a man, and they met on OkCupid or some dating site. And so, she got to see his profile, what he was like, and first time calls him, no joke. First question out of her head in a minute is, have you ever been married? And I said no. And she's like, that's really weird. Have a nice life. And then I was in an event last week. I went to a speed dating event, and a couple of women came in, it was like a 15-year age range, spent 10 minutes, looked around, and left. So I ended up, I was with some girlfriends. We went down, and they were drunk at the bar, and so they waved me over and said, oh, how was it? And I said, I had a great time. There were some nice men, bad word choice, nice men. And so she was like, yeah, they looked really nice. And she's like, look, I'm really superficial. So I was like, hey, at least you know who you are. But what that said to me, I just said, you know what? There were some good men out there, even if you didn't have a connection, So I'm just curious your thoughts of people who immediately dismiss on something like that. To me, I'm like, you just missed a bunch of opportunities. What do you think about that?
I think if someone is that superficial and admittedly so, I think the truth is they're not really ready for a true loving relationship. So this is actually a protection technique. I have this list of, very specific ways I want him to look and be, and I just dismiss all these others. And the truth is they're not ready. And they're kind of using it as a way to protect their heart. They are scared of something, or they haven't healed something. So in my opinion, they're just not ready.
Okay, I like that. I think you're absolutely right. So you touched on lists. Let's talk about lists for a second. I shared the story with you. A couple years ago, I went to some workshop. It was on law of attraction. I'm like, I need a job. I'm going to go to this. And so I met a woman who was looking for a man and pulled out this list. I'd never seen anything like it. Must have been 500 things. Now, one of them was he had to have a private plane. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Of all the things. And she was dead serious, private plane. I can't remember if there was a boat on there. And I was like, well, good luck with that. But what are your thoughts when working? Because I can see value if, what your deal breakers are, qualities that are important to you. But I've always thought, and what I've done recently is put a list of qualities of what I have to offer. Because I think if you're looking for something real and true, it's about giving. Do you know what I mean? If you have that open heart and say, okay, this is what I can give you. So what do you think about that?
Well, I'm a really big fan of lists, and the people who work with me and do any of my programs know that I do encourage a lot of list making. However, I think this making a list about your ideal potential mate is a wrong choice to make, because often you can actually manifest that person into your life, but the relationship that you desire does not come along with the package. So I encourage people when they're working in that manifestation kind of path on that aspect to create a list of what the relationship looks like when the two of you come together. And so he may not be 6'4" and blonde hair and blue eyed, but when you come together, it really you experience something that's very important to you in your relationship. I mean, just an example, when I realized this after doing many interviews that I needed to look at my list differently, I started with, okay, what have I not liked about past relationships? And so I really hated it when a guy didn't like my cooking. I love to cook. I cook many times a day. I'm very experimental. I'm kind of healthy. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's terrible, but I need someone who can hang with me. And so I decided that in my top 5 things I was looking for in a relationship were that we cook and eat adventurous, experimental, healthy food and enjoy it together. And I didn't go out and put on all my profiles, I need a foodie, I want somebody who's into food and all that kind of stuff. But I did notice when I was dating a guy, if he was really picky about a menu or complained about the food or criticized my cooking, this is not going to be a long-term relationship for me. But if he's open and willing to try and supporting me, even if it's a disaster, this is a great relationship for me. So I really I encourage people and teach them how to look at what you're looking for in a relationship, not in the mate.
I love that. I think that's really great. And I've grown so much, she doesn't have to be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. That's how open I've become. I mean, can't get much more open than that. Although if he was a Baltimore or Dallas or New England fan, It's one of those things you have to think about in the beginning. But we've got a great question here for you on chat. And I want to remind you, if you have a question for Jessica, you can chat it in and I'll ask. Or if you're in the triangle, 919-518-9773 or Skype us in Computers 2K Voice. Butch says, I'm one of the good guys with a hard exterior. Where can I find a lady in public and a terror in the bedroom?
A lady in public and a terror in the bedroom. You know, it is something about those like really sweet women that I hear they can be really wild in the bedroom. I wouldn't know. I'm not that sweet. But anyways, where can you find a lady in public and a terror in the bedroom? Well, golly, there are many places to look, Butch. But I'm kind of cracking up at this question because I find that most women, once you kind of give them some freedom and a little bit of self-esteem, can be pretty wild in the bedroom. So I think you need to look at how you're treating them and how comfortable you're making them feel. That might help a little bit. Lady in public, where to look? Gosh. In a cafe, at work, there are so many places to look, Butch. I can't tell you exactly where.
I think you're 110% right about that. We don't have to go down the sex street too long, but I think it all, at least for me, and I would say probably most women would agree with it all begins in the head. You know, if a man makes you feel beautiful and sexy and attractive, you know, that's going to put you at ease. So I want you to talk about some common mistakes that you've seen when working with people and what's preventing them from finding love.
Well, I think the most common mistake that people make when they are looking for love is that they're not actually looking for love. They're looking for pain or a thrill because that's what they know love to be. Or they're looking for something really safe because they're scared of the other thing. And I think most people don't take enough time to actually contemplate, what does real love look like to me? What does it feel like? What will that experience be? And I find that super valuable because if you just go on what your hormones are telling you, they can lead you astray. And so I think that's the most common mistake, is that people don't actually take the time to think about what love looks like for them.
Excellent. And we've got another question from Butch here, and this was on my question list. What do you think about dating sites like OkCupid and Plenty of Fish?
I have lots of thoughts about dating sites. I find that they can be a really great place to meet people, to get connections, to get started. I don't think they're the only place to meet people. And I think that right now, that seems to be the kind of overall message. If you're not on a online dating site, then there's no way you're going to meet somebody. I think that the universe is mysterious and amazing in how it can match you up and put real love in your path. I've helped people and they've met their real love in a parking lot, on an airplane, and a yoga class at the neighborhood pool. So I think it's more about shifting your energy and being open to the possibilities than necessarily having to go one specific route for finding love.
Now, do you have any advice if people are going to go on a dating site, or there may be some do's or don'ts that they should do or that you suggest?
Well, it really depends on the person, so I don't want to go into too much detail, because some people, what tends to happen is they have a whole relationship before they even meet the person. And if you found yourself being, emotionally torn and affected by every little email and analyzing every little thing, it may not be the healthiest place for you. I think keeping it on a lighter level tends to just kind of keep the flow going and not make it an experience that can bring you down. Women tend to fall into this category, where they have these long drawn out relationships via email on an online site without ever meeting someone, and I think that's playing with their heart in an unfair way. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm over online dating. I've done that. I can cross that off the list. I'm going to go another route. I wanted to ask you, in my personal experience, one thing that I learned, I used to expect a man to make me happy. And I think I'm probably not alone in that. And so what I needed to do was figure out, okay, well, why are you unhappy? What's going on? And once I was able to figure out that, heal it, and be like, okay, I got it, then that took pressure off. And so I wasn't expecting that for someone. I'm looking, I see my dad's listening tonight, and one thing that I love when growing up, my dad, especially through college and throughout my adult life, writes me all these great letters, and in some of the relationships, so talking about letters, he'd say, choose your partner carefully because that's going to, enhance your happiness or enhance your sadness. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So that's what I'm looking for, someone obviously that enhances my happiness. So talk about that a little. Have you seen that maybe sometimes people just expect their partner to be their be all and end all and make them happy? What are your thoughts about that?
I agree with your experience, and I love that you use the word enhance, because that's what I often tell people. You're looking for a relationship to enhance your life. Like when you go out with a person, do you feel, more fuller at the end, or do you feel drained at the end? Because we tend to get ourselves committed to people that that don't enhance our life, that kind of tear us down or pull us down, which is just, it's heartbreaking. It's hard to watch. It's hard to be a part of. I do think that there is a very important need for self-healing, for coming to a place of healing with certain relationship wounds, so that you can bring the best you to a relationship. No one's gonna make you happy. No one's gonna fix it all for you. And it's funny how I watch, even in my own life, right as I felt totally healed, I fell in love.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of mad about it, because I was like, I finally feel happy all by myself, and I'm totally okay being alone, and now I'm in love. Great.
No, but see, that's wonderful. I mean, I think that's really inspiring. I had another thought and I just lost it. I hate when that happens. So let me ask you another question. I know. What do you think of soulmates? Because you hear that word thrown around a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting because there are a lot of different views on soulmates. Some are it's the one that makes you feel complete and wonderful. And some other people, like Wayne Dyer, say a soulmate is that person who lights up the parts of you that need to transform. So there's conflict as your soulmate. I don't believe in a single soulmate or a single one true love for anyone. I think this is an abundant universe. There are many possibilities for you to experience true love, real love, soulmate love. And so if you screw one up, you'll get another chance. Don't harp on that sense of there's one person in the entire world that can complete you, and without that one person, you're just incomplete. I definitely think there are multiple possibilities.
And I also think each relationship you go through, it brings you closer to ultimately the person that's best fit for you. And again, if you're open, what can you learn about yourself, your needs, what you don't want, like you were talking about, like I need someone who's into food and open to it. And I remembered my point now. I have a friend who I won't name. We were talking the other night. He went out on a date, and I said, so how's your date? He said, well, she doesn't believe in XXXXX. And I was like, and so we can't date. And I was like, okay, hold up a second. Do you want to date yourself? I mean, are you looking for a mirror image? And I said, and we, of course, got in a disagreement. So I'm hoping, of course, you will prove that I'm right. But what I said was, what if they're just open to it? There were certain spiritual beliefs that he had. And I said, well, what if they're just open to your spiritual beliefs? I mean, not believing in everything. Because I think, besides someone that enhances my life and makes me happy, I want someone that makes me the best version of me. Maybe where I'm struggling, that's like, come on, Jules, call me on it and help me. So what do you think about that?
Well, you bring up a couple of different things. I agree with you, Julie.
Yay!
There is something about that being open, and this kind of leads back to those lists where, okay, they have to believe in this, they have to do this, this is how they have to be because this is what I want in my life, and they may be open to it. I mean, the way we are today is not the way we're going to be 15, 20 years from now. I'm not going to be the same. He's not going to be the same. So you have to go on more than just what shows up on paper. And I think that that one of the issues, though, is that we have a tendency to change ourselves in order to make the other person happy, change our beliefs, change the way we feel and what we like and don't like. And there might be a fear that if this person believes differently than I am, that I'm not going to be able to hold on to my true beliefs, the things that are important to me. So, really learning to hold on to that throughout the dating relationship process and see if there still can be a great connection there with you holding on to it. You don't have to give up your chain, become a Baptist and start liking country music just because the person you want to make like you does. But that you they don't have to like everything that you do or be the same as you, but that you're able to feel confident enough in holding on to you throughout the relationship.
So we've got a comment, Jessica, and I want to remind everyone, if you have a chat the question. I'll ask away. Audio says single people tend to unnecessarily complicate the dating process. Relax. What are your thoughts on that from Audio?
Yeah, I mean, this leads back to the whole being in your head and analyzing everything and what are the rules? And he said that. What does that mean? And she wants this, this, so I have to do this. I do think that there is a lot of complications. And so what I try and work on people with is really getting clear on some, like that long, exhaustive list of 500 things. Instead of really getting clear on the 5 things that you're looking for, the simplifying what you're really looking for. And so that through the dating process, you're not trying to think of 10 million things. You're just thinking of a few and seeing if there's a connection. And it helps you get clearer sooner so you can decide if you do or do not want to pursue this. And I think there are only maybe 3 or 4 key things that show up that, yes, this is a relationship worth committing to or not.
So give an example of what you think would be those 3 or 4 things that are important that people should be like, okay, I should probably stick to this.
Well, my whole thing about long-term relationships, I have 3 things that I think are absolutely important. And again, this is from interviewing dozens of happily married people and what they saw in the beginning to know they can commit to the other person. And the first thing is that you have to be attracted to them. There has to be an attraction. It doesn't have to be the person that you're most attracted to in your entire life, but if you're going to commit your body and soul and spirit to someone, there has to be attraction. And I can't tell you how many women will tell me they're dating some guy and he wants her to commit to him, and I say, well, you're attracted to him, and they say, well, he makes a lot of money, and I'm like, okay, are you attracted to him? No. It's not going to last long term. So I think there has to be some level of attraction. You don't have to notice it right away. They can grow on you. The second thing I think is really important for long term, and I'm giving the house away on this one, on this answer, but is that you have fun together. Like earlier when you're talking about, am I laughing? Is this fun? Is the relationship itself more fun, or is it more drama? I mean, there's so many people who are in these dramatic, heavy, relationships, and you say, why do you stay? I love them, But in all my interviews, when I said, how did you know? No one said, oh, I love them. They gave me different reasons. We had fun, it was always, there was always laughter. We could do anything together. We traveled and it was great. So I think that's a really big thing. And then the third thing to look for, which takes a little bit more time than the first 2 to discover, is, are we moving in the same direction? Is this person going to move to India and go meditate for the next 2 years? Or are they going to move to a big city or to a small town? Or, are we kind of moving in the same direction? And if you have those 3 things, then it's a relationship worth sticking out and exploring and seeing where it can go.
Excellent. You're so much better than Patty Stanger yelling at people on Millionaire Matchmaker. I just got to tell you about that.
Thank you. I want to take her clients and help them.
Well, you know what? I just find it ironic that she's not married, which, hey, I guess you can, I don't know, be a cook and not like food. Just, I kind of don't get that. Now, we have a great question for you on chat from Foxy Lady. Playing hard to get, do you think it works?
Yeah. It can work. It's not necessary. If you feel bold and you like a guy and you want to ask him out, it's not like you've screwed everything up because you weren't playing hard to get. I think it can work. Men like to feel useful. They like to feel productive. And if you hand them everything on a silver platter, they don't really feel like they got to participate. So they do like a little bit of a challenge, even if it's even if it's just in the form of a contribution. So it can be a very effective way to make it. What I prefer to advise women is what I call, instead of hard to get, I say, be the honey. So instead of buzzing around like a busy bee trying to make things happen and make him like you and make him notice you, simply sit and be this sweet, thick honey and see what is attracted to your honey. I kind of like that a little better than playing hard to get.
Oh, I like that. I mean, you got to make a T-shirt. Be the honey. You can have it BEE. You need to start putting that on your site and selling it. Jessica,
Excellent.
I want to know, why do you think we get stuck in unfulfilling relationships? Probably most of us at some point in our life have maybe stayed too long in a relationship or known, hey, you know what, it's just not the right thing. Why do you think that is?
Well, we have a million reasons, and we'll come up with a million more to stay in an unfulfilling relationship. All of them are based out of some sort of fear or insecurity. But I think the biggest thing is that we just want to avoid the conflict. We don't want to have the hard conversations. We don't want to have to say things that might hurt someone, or you might have to admit something about yourself. And I think this is actually a problem throughout relationships, not just in staying, is we're not having those important conversations. It takes a lot of courage to say, you know, I'm really unsatisfied with this and I don't want to see you anymore, or you know, I want to do something different, or I screwed up and I need to own it. We're not having those courageous conversations. We're just making things up inside of our heads, and the problem is I'm making up, filling in the blanks inside my head of the relationship, and he's filling in the blanks inside of his head, and we have no idea what the other person is thinking, and we think so differently. Men and women think so differently. You're never going to know. No matter how smart you think you are, you're never going to know unless you actually have the conversation. And you might hear things you don't want to hear.
Right.
Which is hard.
Now we've got an interesting comment here from audio on the chat. You'd better be yourself during courtship because your true self will emerge during marriage. It would be unfortunate to find that you like your spouse's dating personality but not his or her true personality. Divorce.
Mm-hmm. And this is what's really exciting about the people I work with who do show up as learn to show up as their real self and be authentic, is it's an invitation for the other person to meet you on that level. And so the more yourself that you're being, either somebody will become very uncomfortable and they can't handle it, or they'll relax and show their real self. So, the more you do it, the more the people you're interacting with will feel comfortable expressing the same way.
Yeah, I agree with you 110%. I mean, my dating strategy is honestly just be honest and be who I am. And you know what? It's all good. And one thing that I had to learn, and I think probably was a product of living in Los Angeles for 10 years, when you're in this kind of totally artificial environment, thing that's not built a lot of times on authenticity, is, you know what, a guy's either going to be attracted to you or not, and it's all good. I mean, you could be a Victoria's Secret model, and it doesn't, yeah, they might drool, but that real attraction, not necessarily. So once I kind of got over that made it a lot easier for me. And, I think something I'd like you to talk about, I think confidence is something that a man appreciates. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so too. There's something about, and women appreciate that in men as well. I mean, you a guy who's always, and I'm this, it's not that attractive. I think confidence and that sense of self-esteem is very attractive because, like you said earlier, people are looking for someone else to complete them or make them happy, and that's a lot of pressure. And if I see that you have some confidence and some sense of self on your own, I don't have to provide that for you. So I'm feeling a little more free to give and take in this relationship. So I think it kind of stems back to that. They don't want to feel the pressure of having to fix it for you.
Now, what are your thoughts? I have a moratorium on dating books because I just couldn't keep track of it all. And it was just too much. And I thought, I'll never forget when The Rules was really popular. My friends like, oh my gosh, got to read this book. It's great. And the one thing that always stuck, don't accept a date for Saturday after Wednesday. And I'm like, well, what if he wins concert tickets on the radio station? She'd be like, no, sorry, it's Friday afternoon, can't do it. And just things that, to me, that's just game playing. And, I don't know. Why do it? So what are your thoughts on dating books?
Well, if I write one, you should definitely buy it. No. And do everything it says. I remember when the rules, well, I don't remember when the rules came out, but my sister gave it to me when I was like 18 or 19, and it played with my head. I mean, literally 7 years of screwed up mind around dating, because if it didn't work out because I followed the rules, I'd be like, oh, I wasn't being myself. I was doing those stupid rules. And then if it didn't work out because I didn't follow the rules, I was like, oh, it didn't work out because I didn't follow the rules. And it really took a lot of effort to separate those out of my head, to be able to let them go and let it be about something else. I just think if I were to write a bunch of rules about dating, I'd probably break them all, just because I like to break rules. But I do think that there are some keys to finding, putting yourself out there, and to really finding love and navigating in a right way. I think there are three. The first is holding on to yourself and being true to yourself throughout the dating process. Don't kind of meld all around. The second is believing that real love is out there, believing it's possible. And the third is learning to receive love from someone else. I think we are not at all practiced in this, especially the powerful women of today who do everything for themselves. We don't make room for someone else to give to us and to come in. And you need to learn that to be in a truly healthy relationship.
Right. This is a great lead-in for our question from Secretary Not S. How realistic is it to be all in on a relationship if a relationship is a part of an incredibly busy life? Is it a matter of figuring out what's really important and potentially sacrificing a little? Or when it's right, would it not seem like sacrifice?
I feel a couple of ways about this. If it's right, you find a way that makes it work. I mean, there are people who, as soon as they start dating someone, they spend 24 hours together and all that. I was in a very busy, hectic life when I started dating my husband, and our schedules were totally different. And we were lucky if we got to see each other once a week. And that was okay for a while, but then we had to change things. We had to move in together just so we could see each other, and still we didn't see each other enough. And so I actually changed my entire career path so that we could spend more time together. But it's worth it. I'm surprised that I did it. I still have a career. It's not at all what I expected of my life, but it's better than anything I expected. So I just say you have to really follow your gut on that. Sometimes it is worth it.
Yeah, no, great advice. So when you're working with someone, how do you help them? How do you help them find true love? What are you doing?
Well, there are two main areas we work on. The first area is that whole manifestation thing. It's about really getting clear on what will be a life-enhancing relationship, what to look for, get kind of tapping into the right energy flow so that you can, manifest that into your life. So there's that whole aspect of things. And then there's the whole navigating dating, the dating process, where to meet people, how to deal with these issues, how to deal with sex and condoms, and how to know if it's worth your time, and how to be your real self, how to break up with a guy. So I kind of deal with those two main areas throughout the process. And we do have products on the website that address those two. And when I work privately, it's just kind of meeting them where they are. If they're out dating and all over the place, I might step them back and say, okay, no dating for 3 months. You need to get clear on what's going on. Or it might be like, okay, you're in a rhythm. Let's really tap into your flow and shift things a little bit. So it's those two things, the energetic kind of manifestation, and then the practical, how do we deal with the dating scene? Because it's so different and new these days.
Now, Jessica, you have posted a great quote on the Facebook page, our Facebook page, and I'm trying to find it about...
I know what it is.
Tell us about that quote and then talk about that.
It's from a musical called Avenue Q, and there's a great song that goes, there's a fine, fine line between love and a waste of time. And I just love it, because there are people that you have loved so much, that your whole heart is committed to, everything about you. And then in a moment, it'll click that this isn't right and that you've just wasted your time. And so to me, that line kind of is a place to forgive yourself for, it is a fine line. We make mistakes. We commit ourselves to the wrong person and waste some time, but it's a fine line. Everyone makes this mistake. And boy, when you have that click, and it's so easy to be like, wow, done, waste of time. It's a really wild experience. How can we go from two extremes so quickly?
Yeah, no, I think forgiveness is very, very important. And I also want to ask you something you mentioned when working with people, and we have a couple questions here coming up on chat, but I think it's really important as best as possible to end a relationship in a good way, because it's just my personal belief is how you end something is really how you're gonna start something else, if that makes sense. What do you think about that?
Well, breaking up is really hard to do, and sometimes people will stay in a relationship for years longer than they need to because they fear that breaking up, they don't want to hurt the other person. There's so much emotional baggage on that. And so I kind of disagree a little bit here. Sometimes you just need to break up however you can do it, whether it is the lamest email breakup or it's in person and you have this respect and you talk everything out and you stay friends or whatever. It really depends on the situation and how much emotional turmoil you're experiencing. But if you know you have to break up with someone, you know it's what's best for you, and it's just facing it in that way, you just can't do it. Just end it any way you can. Lie. I always used to lie. I used to always say, I'm really high maintenance, and I think you deserve someone who is a little more easygoing. I would make it about some fault of mine,
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of cut the ties and not have any, lingering things. So it can be a really sticky thing to get through, and some people avoid it like the plague, and it's hard to watch.
Yeah, no, that sounds. Yeah. There they go. I am not had a great one. It's not you, it's me. Although I think that one's a little overused. We have a question here from Red High Heels. Sorry to be superficial, but all I want is a man to take care of me. Is this really unhealthy?
Well, it depends on what you mean by take care of you. I definitely think if I didn't have my husband in my life, I would be in an insane asylum because I can't handle my life without him. I need someone who is supportive of me, who's loving, who's encouraging, those kinds of things, who allows me to blossom and feeds me in that way. So if you're this beautiful flower and you need to be tended with water and nutrition and sunlight and joy and love and that kind of taking care, that I think is a very healthy way. If you just want a man to pay for everything so that you can lay around in your red high heels and a nightie and eating chocolate all day, you can manifest that, but you may not necessarily have that deep, fulfilling, inspirational, be the better self to go out in the world kind of relationship. But I love red high heels.
There you go.
Don't get rid of those.
There you
go.
go.
Big fan.
But why do you think that is that women, I think that's sometimes maybe a trap that women fall into. But I think it's I blame Disney, quite honestly, because I feel like we have all these characters. Like my niece is 6. And so she's actually really smart. So last year at Christmas time and during the holidays, she's like, why aren't you married? I was like, well, it's kind of complicated. I'm like, I don't think I can go into my relationship thing with you. And so she kept asking. Then she was like, where's your ring? And I looked at my hand. I said, oh, you mean why am I not wearing a wedding ring? And then obviously someone in my family had said, don't ask Juji these questions. And so she waited until everyone was out of the room and was like, when are you getting married? And I was like, look, Claire, I'm working on it. And this Christmas, she was like, do you even have a boyfriend? I mean, just in her little 6-year-old mind, I am not moving fast enough. And so I think when you grow up with that, the prince is going to come to the castle and save us instead of teaching us to love ourselves and be self-sufficient. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny how you get these things put in your mind. Like, I thought you go to high school, you go to college, you meet your love in college, you get married like the month after you graduate from college, you both get these awesome jobs, you have 3 kids, and la, la, la. And you just kind of thinking that that's the pattern. And then when you start seeing people not have that experience, it's like, oh, you mean that's not what's going to happen for me? And it's scary. I forgot the question. But I forgot what your question was, but.
Well, just about women kind of being taught by Disney, and I think we grow up in this society saying, take care of me, as opposed to learning to love and take care of ourselves. So I think it's kind of ingrained in our culture.
I think so, but our culture has changed so dramatically in the past 50, 60 years that it's kind of like two extremes. And there's these other women who are like, I can take care of myself. You can't do anything for me. I'm going to pay for everything, and I'm going to open my own door, and, all this kind of stuff. So that, men are really confused. I feel sorry for men these days because they don't know what to do. Am I supposed to provide for them, or am I supposed to be supportive of their career and happy to receive from them? They are so lost. And we're confusing them. We've trained middle-class white men to not hold the door for a pregnant woman because they might offend us. I mean, it's just, we have really confused things because we kind of have these mixed messages. I want you to make tons of money, but I also don't want you to, let me take care of myself. And it's very confusing. And I think, again, this kind of gets back to, what does real love mean for you? And does it mean that you're feeling nurtured or feeling connected or feeling inspired and supported? Or does it mean that you have a pretty house and in the right neighborhood? What does it really mean for you? What's important? I mean, part of me wishes I'd married a millionaire. I mean, my husband's awesome, but I'm like, I could have gotten a richer guy if I really put my mind to it. No, I hope he's not listening.
No, you know what? I think that's a great answer, because I think we're about the same age, and so when I went to college, I went to an all women's college, and they spoon feed you the gruel there, and it was like a man. And I grew up, my brothers. I'm the only granddaughter. I mean, was really, very polite. My dad's the type of guy that he doesn't let you walk on the inside curb of the sidewalk because you might get splashed. And so I went through this phase where I'd be like, yeah, I don't need you to open the door for me. And because they're like, you're a woman, you can do it yourself. And I'm the total opposite now. Like have the door open. I think a guy should walk you to your car at night, especially if it's dark. I mean, those things are little things that I notice that go a long way. And also, it'd be interesting if you could talk about, I believe if you are out with someone, if you just listen, they're going to tell you a lot about who you are, who they are. So what do you think about that?
I think that's very true. But a lot of people aren't listening. They're having a conversation inside their head and not actually paying attention to the other person. But yeah, I think if you really listen, active listening, commenting on what they're saying, that helps you to kind of put the pieces together and get a clearer picture. But yeah, there's something about being quiet and listening. My first date with my husband, I asked him out. And I just sat there and I didn't speak the whole time. And he told me everything. And he says to this day, he's like, the things that came out of my mouth, I had never even thought before. But all of a sudden, I just started saying them. Like, this is the kind of husband I want to be. This is the kind of father I want to be. And he's like, I didn't want to get married and have kids, but it just came out. So by listening, you might actually help the person discover something about them, too. So
I love that.
It's a useful thing to do.
Now, we've got a comment from Butch from our recent back and forth. He said, yes, mixed messages for sure. I couldn't imagine not paying or opening doors, but the women I date make as much money as I do. How do I handle this? Good question.
Well, I actually read an article just the other night about this, and I agree with everything it said. I personally believe whoever asks should pay. That's my personal belief, but a lot of people think the man should pay. But life is expensive. Dating is expensive, and if you want to see someone a whole bunch, asking them to pay all the time could be kind of an unfair burden. So I think it's important to kind of say, hey, I want to go out again. Do you mind? I'm going to pick up some concert tickets, or I'll cover this one. A little bit of give and take, I think, is nice when it comes to the whole paying thing. Or, I'll cover the tip, because it can be a huge financial burden. I mean, going to the movies and out to dinner, I mean, it's very expensive. And nowadays, a lot of women are making just as much as men. But I if anyone offers to pay, I'm not going to say no. So
there you go. Now, I wonder what you think about women asking men out. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's important. It's especially important today because the men are confused. They they interact with women in totally different ways than they interacted with women 80 years ago. They're at work, they're at their bosses, they're all these different places, and men tend to, the way our actual brains work, men tend to have a very singular focus. So there might be this great guy you want to date at work, but when he's at work, he's thinking about work and da 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 da, and it's just not coming into his realm that maybe I'll date this person. So since us women, we women can think about 5 million different things at the same time. We can be thinking, okay, yeah, we're working on this product, and I think I might want to go out with this guy. So I think it's more important today that we ask guys out if we're interested, because they're confused and they're focused and they're seeing women in so many different places that sometimes we need to help make the connection.
All right, excellent. I wouldn't have thought that would have been your answer, but I learned something tonight. So, what advice do you have for shy people?
Well, actually, my advice for shy people is the exact same advice I have for super outgoing people. I really advise people to breathe a lot, to remember to breathe. It's amazing when you meet someone that you're attracted to, or you're worried about, or on a speed dating kind of thing, how little we actually breathe. So I really believe in breathing, and to not feel obligated to say or do anything. Take that pressure off, because I think that's why people clam up a lot, is that sense of obligation. So take that pressure. I don't even have to say a word. I can just be here. That's okay. And again, to get out of the mind. Are you having a conversation inside of your head? Are you analyzing every little thing? Stop that. Start making observations. Dare yourself to say them out loud. And I think that can really kind of get you out of that clammed up kind of feeling.
All right. Excellent advice. So what do you think people do, or where they make mistakes in preventing love from unfolding naturally? You have any thoughts on that?
I do, but you know what? I keep thinking about Miss Red High Heels, so I'm
well, we had a little bit back and forth on here, and she wanted to know if they wanted to see the high heels, and I think a couple of guys were interested, but so far we're gonna keep this PG-13.
Oh, good.
So Miss Red High Heels, Mrs. Ms. Do you have any questions or comments for Jessica? Don't hesitate.
I had a comment for her about wanting a man to take care of her.
Okay.
I find that a lot of women in relationship complain that they do so much taking care of the man. So my advice is to kind of, instead of looking for someone to take care of you, look for someone that you don't have to take care of, because that seems to be more of the tendency, is that, men get into a relationship and they kind of just hand over a lot of the power to a woman and are like, okay, you figure it out and tell me what to do. And I think, really watching that you don't get into a relationship where you are feeling obligated to take care of someone else. And I think that's a guideline. But love unfolding naturally. I think the games, the pressure, all the way we can communicate with each other these days is too much. I mean, I have people who, he didn't call for 2 days, they start texting, and then they start emailing him and all this kind of stuff. There's too much communication and not enough just like reflective time between when you see each other. And so when you're feeling insecure or worried or anxious or angry about something in a relationship, to just kind of take a step back and just tell yourself over and over again, I have no idea what's going on inside their mind, and just kind of release, because we start communicating so much and jumping on them that they immediately will push you away. And I think that ruins a lot of relationships before they even get off the ground.
Excellent advice, and that's time to pull out the meditation chair. You feel You're doing the monkey mind, just sit down and start meditating. So Jessica, what advice would you have for someone out there that maybe is really struggling? Maybe they're like really want to find someone or feel they're all alone, or maybe you just ended a bad relationship and are healing, what would you say to them? What advice would you give to them?
Well, if you're going through hell, just keep going. That's the only way that you can. Don't stop and say this is it. The year before I started dating my husband, I knew him for a while before we started dating, but it was the darkest part of my life. I was in the deepest depression of my life. I mean, it got really dark, and I had to, really take some time to myself. So you can, through going through that, finding the healing, doing what you can, come out the other end in a beautiful way and find love. So just keep going through and know that it can be waiting for you on the other side.
Excellent. Now we've got one last question from Foxy Lady. A really good man friend who I mostly email with, and I don't know if he likes me romantically. I don't want to lose a friendship. What can I do? I like him.
I get this question a lot, and I think it's you email quite frequently. There is an opportunity there for you, and I think being kind of direct. I would do it in person, or actually, I'm going to say, direct in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I like to ask the question like, hey, I've been wondering what it would be like if you asked me out. I think it's okay to invite a guy to ask you out if you kind of want to see if they will. If you don't quite feel like I can ask him out, like, gee, it'd be nice to be together, just you and me. What do you think? Just kind of asking a question and approaching it that way, and in a way that's not so direct, but puts the issue out on the table, so you don't have to be wondering so much.
All right, we've got another question from Butch. What's the secret behind chemistry? My thought is that it's either there or it's not. I don't think you can create it. I mean, it's just something I don't think we'll ever understand. I mean, I won't.
There is a mystery there. Chemistry is there, and there are different levels of chemistry. There are those people that have such a chemical reaction with. You don't even have to see them. They can just show up in the same room and you feel them immediately, and that's amazing and exciting. And there are other people who maybe are sitting right next to you at work and you don't realize there's chemistry until you just happen to see them in a specific light, and then the chemistry starts to form. So it's something to be aware of. I don't think it has so many different levels, and I think a lot of times we if it's not that big, super insanely emotional chemical thrill, we don't notice that there could be chemistry laying there that's waiting to emerge.
Excellent. Now, Jessica, I'm all about getting off the couch. So what one step can people take after the show tonight, tomorrow morning, to reawaken their brilliance? What can they do?
One step tonight, I would say, go look in the mirror and say out loud 3 things you think are awesome about you. I'm really big on people recognizing what they have to offer, like you were talking about your lists earlier. What is great about me in a relationship? And I actually encourage people to then find activities that showcase the things that they really think are great about them. And that's a great way to meet a potential mate.
Excellent. Now, Jessica, do you have any workshops coming up? And tell us how people can find out books, CDs, and how they can find out more information about you.
We do have a workshop coming up pretty soon. It is for the single women out there, and it's about flirting for finding my real love. They're working on the technical aspect. So if you want to be one of the first to find out exactly the date and time on that, you can go to findingmyreallove.com. That's findingmyreallove.com, and you can sign up for the 9 no-fail tips for finding real love. You'll get the free tips. You'll find out about the workshop. I have a weekly video that goes out that's a bit of relationship advice. And if you have a question that you would like to see me address on one of my weekly blogs, please send it directly to me. Or if you have a question about private coaching and how that works, you can email me directly at jessica@findingmyreallove.com. And it doesn't actually go straight to me, but if you put, I heard you on the show, or I heard you with Julie, I'll make sure my assistant sends it straight to me that day. So I'll get it.
Excellent. Well, Jessica, I feel like we can always use more love in the world, so we'll have to have you on again. And I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. It was great being here, Julie. I'm really excited, and thank you all the people who chatted in with us.
And stay on, Jessica. We're going to talk to you after the show.
Okay.
And I want to remind everyone in the Triangle area that next week, next Tuesday, is our Thrive event, our Reawaken Your Brilliance Live, where if you got a lot of mental, physical, or spiritual clutter, come learn how to get rid of that so you're not wasting your life on things that you don't want to. And we want to thank Delta Technologies for sponsoring that. More information, reawakenyourbrilliance.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays 9 a.m. to noon. Health In with Debbie Bruck, Mondays 11 a.m. till noon. The Scope of Things with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 8 to 9 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays 8 to 9 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com.